Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome all of you to a very new League of Legends video. So as I'm sure most of you know, the new champion Rek'Sai has been out on the live servers for quite some time. And on top of that, I'm sure most of you see this champion being played in the jungle, probably building some AD and then mainly tank. And you may have also noticed that her underground Q ability is the only ability that she has that has AP scaling, but the AP scaling is a 1-to-1 ratio. Which brings up the question, AP Rek'Sai, is it good? Is it bad? Well, as a mid laner, I do try to play almost every single new champion that comes out in the mid lane, whether it's AD or AP. And AD Rek'Sai is quite strong, but I also want to try AP Rek'Sai, and much to my surprise, it is also very strong. So my goal in this video is of course to go over AP Rek'Sai. I'll tell you guys my thoughts about it, if it's good, if it's bad, my build path, runes, masteries, all of that good stuff. And by the end of the video, hopefully you have a better idea of whether or not you want to try this, and if you do, how you should go about it. So first, let's talk about the positives that I find in AP Rek'Sai. The first one is the fact that she surprisingly has a naturally tanky laning phase, which is really good. Because playing AP Rek'Sai in terms of harass for the first maybe 5 or so levels is not the best in the laning phase. So you are kind of forced to fight them in melee range in the laning phase, for example going under them with your E, popping up, knocking them up, using your Q in uprooted form, following up with the E, etc. Your underground Q doesn't really become all that useful until maybe about level 7 or 8 or so, but her natural tankiness does definitely help you out with this problem. On top of that, of course, as I'm sure most of you have realized, the range on her burrowed Q is absolutely ginormous. As you see right here, get almost a maximum ranged snipe on the enemy Lissandra. So nuking people down, harassing them, and overall just being annoying is definitely one of her specialties. But as you're gonna see in this clip, on top of that, she's extremely difficult to catch. Kind of like an AP Kog'Maw in terms of using your Q to snipe people. Kog'Maw on the other hand, if he gets caught, he's definitely caught and he's probably gonna die. But her, she has so many ways to escape with her E and just using already existing tunnels, which I honestly think is a huge plus. The next thing is of course the fact that her burrowed Q is a 1-to-1 AP ratio, which really is the reason behind why this build is even considered. A cool thing though also is the fact that she can also bring in some much needed CC if the situation arises. For instance, on this Sona, I snipe her with the Q, see the opportunity, walk back just in case because I saw other people, but I can walk right back in with my E, knock her up, go for the kill, and then finish off with another snipe. So even though she's like an AP Kog'Maw chilling from afar, firing her Qs, she can also have the option to engage and knock people up. Options are always good. Her ultimate, which I only really find the purpose of to just go back into lane or to a certain area faster so you can potentially farm up or maybe go in for an assault. Other than that, it's not really all that good. But other than that, it's a pretty cool ultimate for the reasons I just mentioned. Stacking up Mejai's can also be quite easy since you're pretty safe, chilling in the back, throwing out Qs, getting assists, sniping down kills. And overall, she's just extremely annoying to deal with for the enemy team. But quickly going into the negatives, as with all champions there are of course negatives. The first one is the most obvious one. Her Q underground is literally the only spell that you have that will deal any significant damage. So of course, if you miss your burrow Q a little too much, I mean, you're kind of useless. Her laning phase, despite what I've said, is still mediocre at best. It's not bad, but it's not great. You also feel somewhat useless in teamfights if you cannot land your Qs, or if you don't land really the most important ones. Since in a team fight, you usually cannot really go in for the hard engage into melee form, or else they'll just burst you down, you'll lose your stacks, and you'll just not really do anything. One thing I've noticed is that I have trouble carrying late game with this champion, so you have to try to finish off the game by at least 40 minutes. Or suddenly, you don't really feel like you're doing the same amount of damage. She does feel a little reliant on the Mejai stacks to ensure that she can keep dishing out that immense damage. And finally, she's not the easiest to play because your only source of damage is purely a skill shot. So now let's go into the item builds. I want to be showing you guys 2 different build paths because one of them I think a lot of people will just go WTF since they're just not used to it. So just remember that there are 2 build paths, but let's go into the first one. One very important thing to mention about the build that I do with her is that I try to achieve 40% cooldown reduction as fast as possible, because it is just so important. You want to be able to fire off those Qs as often as possible. So with that being said, with this build, I try to get the 40% CDR as fast as I possibly can by getting double Morellonomicon. A lot of people might be turned off by this because you're just simply wasting the passive stat, and on top of that you're getting 2 items that offer mana regen for a champion without mana. But look at the bright side, it offers 80 AP, it offers 20% CDR, the passive is still being used, and it's only 2100 gold. It is a very cost efficient item. Then I always follow up with a Mejai's because it's just so great on her and it's so easy to stack up. I get the Stork boots, I get a Rabadon's, and I get a Void Staff. Now for this build, those items are pretty much the only ones you want, but I did list a few other items underneath just in case your Magi stacks fall off and you don't think you can get it back up. You can sell that and get one of those items. I also want to point out that I've never tried Liandry's Torment on this champion yet, but I've heard good things, so use it at your own caution. And the final thing I want to mention is that getting a scrying orb could be extremely beneficial because you want to be able to see your opponents that you're sniping down. So that there was the first build, but let's go to the second one, which is just a small variation. I still get the Morellonomicon, but I only get one, and pretty much all the other items are the same. But the difference now is that you get Boots of Lucidity. So with Boots, Morellonomicon, and 5% CDR from your masteries, you can still definitely achieve that 40% CDR. And then for the last item, you can choose any of the items I have listed underneath. I realize it's actually a pretty good idea. Quickly going into runes and masteries, I go 2190. You can also put a few points into the movement speed from utility if you really wish. Overall quite standard. I keep the 4 points in the CDR at the very top in the offense tree even if I'm going double Morellonomicon, because it still helps during the laning phase. But again, feel free to switch it up as you see fit. For my runes, I run a pretty simple page. I get flat AP Quints, Magic Pen Reds, health per level yellows, and then flat MR blues. The only thing I can recommend maybe switching out is maybe yellows for armor or just flat HP, or you can switch out the Quints for move speed Quints instead if you so choose. But that's pretty much all I want to talk to you guys about for AP Rek'Sai. I personally enjoy playing it quite a bit. It feels a little trollish, but it's really strong. And almost every single time I've played it, I've done quite well. So tell me what you guys think, tell me how your games go, tell me if you enjoyed the video. If you did, definitely throw in a like, share it with your friends, and I hope to see you for the next one. Peace.